after he puts it on, they have a limited amount of time, because the tranquilizer can't be that strong, because again, it would be bad for the heart for the animal. So essentially, they say, okay, with a limited amount of time, we're going to go, we're going to put the collar on the animal, and then we're going to back off. And so what will occur is after they place the collar on the elephant, all right, they put it on there, then they'll monitor, they'll come up every so often to where the elephant is and then download the more, I would have to say, robust amount of GPS data they collected. And then they'll basically take a look at the path that the elephant actually goes around a particular preserve. Now, this particular elephant was quite interesting, because what she did is that basically they were looking at that where she would go up to the edge of the preserve and then back off, because she knew there was greater danger of poaching when she went beyond this particular barrier. So it was quite interesting, the type of information that they gleaned. Here is where they were running for their lives, because the elephant was charging them at the same time. They were like, run forward at the same time. So that's why the camera basically suddenly went berserk. The next little segment in GPS is, this is the late 1990s, but I'm using this as an example for comparison. This was where they started putting GPS on golf carts. So essentially, when somebody was playing golf, they would take a look at that and say, well, I want to know, how far I have to play going to this. I want to know if there's a rise in the fairway. I want to know what kind of green that happens to be. So they mark it all off and they say, okay, here's all this information. And so then back at the, even at the, basically the clubhouse, what would occur is that if there was an emergency as well, basically the unit would then, relay information from the clubhouse back to the GPS unit that they would have. Now, the reason I'm also showing this is that very quickly at the end, I'm going to show you the update to this, where you have the same sort of programs, but now they're on iPads. You no longer need the golf cart in order to do that. All right, next, measuring. Process of determining the physical quantity of an object. So in terms of what kind of information you want to measure, whether or not, again, it's the location, or measuring part of the Earth's surface, that's another reason for GPS. And so here's me in Uganda. This was a few years, 2005. And I bring this up very quickly because I was using GPS to measure the actual location of the equator. And here's a monument in Uganda. And I was there, and I had my little GPS receiver. Oh, I got it right there at the same time. I got it at the same time. So I've got it there, and I'm walking over, and I said, wait a minute, the monument here, where northern and southern hemisphere, it says here, this is not the equator. So I walk over here, go ahead and keep going over here, and I find the spot. I said, oh, it's actually right here at the same time. Now, when they put the monument back, when they first put it up, probably was 1925, essentially, you're not going to have as good instruments for surveying at the time of finding it. So I had it over there, and I'm standing there, and so then there was a person who owned the restaurant in the back there, and he was very friendly. He comes up to me, and he says, oh, what you do? Oh, I got a GPS here. I hate to tell you this, but your monument's in the wrong spot. He says, oh, yes. I know. And he says, and he looks, and he says, what's that? Oh, it's a GPS. He says, oh, you must be an American. Because only Americans come up and say, here's a GPS, and you're in the wrong spot at the same time. I said, okay, you're absolutely right. So they're not going to move that. But actually, the GPS was so accurate, it was telling me, again, within, in this particular case, 4 or 5 feet, that the monument's not right in the right spot. Other kind of measurements real quick, precision farming. There's a raft of different techniques that farmers can use to help in terms of managing their farm fields. And again, I know my time is limited here. So basically, in fact, you could even have particular differential GPS. Not that they do this most of the time, but they could actually automate it. You can see down here, they have a pilot system. You could take and basically automate your tractor going up and down the field with such precision that you wouldn't necessarily need a driver, because the GPS is telling you exactly where you're going. And so that's a little bit of what it actually looks like. Who uses it? I'm running over, in terms of another 5 minutes, so I'm going to run over time. But again, wide range of people, civilian government, military, engineering, construction, the list goes on and on. Emergency management especially is very important. Retail trade, utilities, again, same sort of individuals that use GPS in conjunction with GIS. Finally, last part, location-based services. This is what's interesting. is that you've had this technology coming down the pike. You had remote sensing, you had GIS, you had GPS, and now in the last 10 years you've had location-based services. This means you have your personal digital assistant, you have your iPad, you have your iPod, you have your iPhone, you have your Android tablet, you have your Android phone, you have your smartphone, you have all these devices. And there's germinate even more sophisticated and personalized instruments of what we can use with geospatial data than ever before, especially applications or apps, software. So I say LBS in your life. The majority of non-gaming apps, I'm throwing that in, non-gaming at the same time, have a geospatial component where you can help navigate your car, the nearest coffee shop, monitor your path through a park. The accessibility has only increased. And I make the comment with the applications that we're going to look at, we are now forever geotagged in terms of that. Everyone is a point. You're geotagged and you're looking at that. So, some very quick applications before I wrap things up here tonight. I can go my iPad and I can use the Maps applications and map out driving from Stevens Point down to UW-Madison. It'll tell me, page by page, route by route. I can use it in my car to show me the route I have to follow. You can also have it more interactive. You can have your iPhone or you have your iPod Touch, essentially, and you can say, oh, show me the route. Now, what's nice about this is depending if you used your phone or depending if you use the right iPad, not all iPads have GPS in them. If you have G4 on your iPad, it will then also show you where you happen to be along your route as you're traveling. All these other devices, though, will still map out your route in terms of what is going to be the most efficient route that you happen to be looking at. And so here I was actually driving to part of the center of UW-Madison down on Langdon Street for a parking lot at that particular time is the address that I put in. Now, final components. I mentioned, and I want to talk about a couple new type of techniques, augmented reality. This is a physical, real world whose elements are augmented by computer-generated sensory input. So I take my iPhone or my Android phone, and I hold it up, and I'm having an app running, and it tells me what's in front of me. It gives me information like, oh, what's that store over there? I can pop up. Here's a program called Around Me. There's many of them. Restaurants, bars, coffee shops. I had our student intern, Gretchen, over there. She went around, and she basically was photographing these for me, where it says, okay, Goo's on the main, so you can see where she went the other day, but she was basically looking at that. And then Supreme Bean was there. This was kind of interesting, though. I didn't talk to you about this, was Emmy J's is there, and it's like, wait a minute, Emmy J's is way over there. But when you pointed up, it was pointing in the right direction. If you didn't have the buildings there, it's over there at the same time. So some of the programs, they could be a little bit better that way. Here's one that she had called Yelp. And again, you could hold it up, and then not only would it tell you like restaurants, like Bill's Pizza Shop, it would give you reviews. And then you can start to say, oh, is this a good place to go or not at the same time when I'm looking, a place that I'm visiting here in Stevens Point. And so here's some more. Here's where they're, looking at different sorts of restaurants, Politos and a coffee shop here and kebab house. This was, I'm assuming, this was the bars, right, in terms of that? So, they would go up and they say, okay, what are the ones that are better reviewed according to, what the people inputted into Yelp? This one was Wikitude. The only problem I saw with this one was basically the names were limited, in terms of that. That was the case, Gretchen? Or yeah, okay. So it had Opera Ho instead of house, And it's like I'm going, nah. So some of them were better than others. And I have to thank Gretchen for taking all these because she was able to use her iPhone to take a look at these. The one that was unique, too, is you don't have to think about on Earth. You could just basically put your iPhone up and have the right application here and then start looking at constellations. All right, so you're basically someone who's really interested in looking at stars. You could hold up and it will start telling you all the constellations and mapping those out for you ahead of time. Even, this is the thing I liked, it tells me the satellites. Oh, there's Orbit View 2 satellite at the same time. It tells me where the satellites are. Yeah, there it is. At the same time, I can take a look at it. Second, crowdsourcing. this was the other term I was becoming very popular, so I wanted to define it. Outsourcing tasks to a large group of people, often through an appeal on the internet. That's what crowdsourcing is. So for example, when they had the earthquake on Haiti, crowdsourcing became very important because they had cell phones was still working, and they would actually send messages to the US to start building a GIS database of different areas where there was a problem. So people need help here. This building's destroyed. They were starting to map this out basically from all those people. Now, I do want to make note that crowdsourcing, the term, has been kind of usurped, though, because even companies like Allstate, and there's many other companies, not just Allstate, they're using it to call crowdsourcing. For example, if you basically you can put on this little device on your car that actually records your driving habits. And then if your driving habits are good, they can lower your rates. They're calling it crowdsourcing. I go, not really, because crowdsourcing is when you direct information from many people who want to give in. So it's kind of interesting. Well, you have a lot of companies now using that term, and it's, I don't know what's being misused or not, but they're still sending this information. In this case, it's a little device forwarding information about your driving habits to your company, insurance company. You can also use crowdsourcing, though, for something like this. There was a couple years ago, they started doing this in road congested areas. People with cell phones, again, would basically tell where there was a lot of congestion. They would start mapping that out. Somebody was maybe leaving for the day to go somewhere. They could immediately see the congestion in a major city like Chicago. That, again, is an aspect of crowdsourcing, producing that map. And if even there's a flu outbreak, you can use that for crowdsourcing. You can basically go up here and use Twitter. You can tweet, and you can say that, I don't feel so good today, or I think I've got the flu. There was a study done in New York City, basically that they took all this information, and using a computer program, artificial intelligence, they were able to determine what person was sick or not by the information they were tweeting. And basically what occurred is they could develop hotspots of flu in New York City. In other words, avoid these spots. This is where you might be able to, somebody might give you the flu or that. Finally, there's a whole bunch of other applications, and again, I'm out of time here, but you basically can use all different types of apps that are GPS-based with GIS databases to help you in terms of finding the right jogging route and knowing how many miles you basically jog that day. You can even put a GPS chip in your shoe, so you don't even have to hold anything as you're running about and collecting the information. Or you can start reporting information to your friends and family. Basically, this is Waze, where basically you can see what your family and other people are doing, or basically other strangers at the same time. And I didn't make up these characters. I was looking at this. I was actually asking Gretchen about this. I said, what are these characters made? But they're all different types of people with a different sonority, I guess, in terms of what they've been using. And also, you can use GPS for basically helping you wake up on a moving train. As you're moving along and you fall asleep on the train, it'll monitor your location and it'll wake you up at the right stop. Say, hey, wake up at the same time. You can do that. You can even, when you're visiting a city, get ratings for bathrooms. So essentially, here's the bathroom I'm going to. Hey, this is not looking so good. I got little impressions of rats and broken bottles there. I guess I don't want to use this bathroom in this particular location. All right, that's called dark alley, or that. And then one of the final ones is that in terms of golf courses, I was mentioning that before, there is a slew of golf apps that you can use now to do the same thing that you needed that golf cart program before to do. You can buy a $30 program, Golf GPS for iPhone, Golf Logic for iPhone, so forth, and it works the same way, even better than what they originally had for helping you play a better game of golf for that. And that's that. You can use an app for hiking. I kind of like this one very quickly. You can go hiking. Let's say National Geographic has an app, and then you can also buy your portable solar power. So if your power is going low on your phone, you just regenerate that with your own little solar panel right as you're hiking along at the same time. And then for people who are looking for the best gas prices, there are programs out there, again, GPS related with the apps. Gas Buddy, find cheap gas prices. There are several out there that you can utilize. Again, helpful for people trying to locate a feature, of interest that they have. And then the final one is GPS tracking. And this is, again, just thinking about this. There are programs for tracking where you are. And what you can do is that, and then, again, this is very popular with teenagers, for example. You want to know where your friend is. Hey, where is he hanging out? You can allow them to see where your GPS is telling them on their phone, and you can actually have this map of where your friends are. Oh, he's going to Starbucks. Maybe I want to go there too. And so there's these programs that allow you. Now, again, you have to give permission for them to see where you're at. But again, for $3.99, you can get GPS tracking, and you can put in your friends and family if they want to, where their cell phones happen to be. So the applications are enormous. This is just a tip of the iceberg, to be perfectly honest, of how geospatial data is actually being used. And I'm going to sum up here by basically very quickly stating, and I won't go through all this, I know I'm over time, the need for spatial skills is that as this revolution has occurred, more and more people have to be educated and trained in this area than ever before. And it gets more complex too, because you can see there's many different aspects of these areas that you would have to learn. And right now there's probably over 500,000 professionals in the field using GPS, GIS, and so forth, but it's increasing. This is basically geospatial skills is one of the 3 most important technical fields in the U.S. based upon the U.S. labor basically looking at what is needed. And so there are need for such things as geospatial certificate programs, and so this is my plug. Basically, that essentially the UWSP GIS Center is one that can help educate people in these particular areas. And the certificate program is 18 credits. There's a series of different tracks that you can use. And so essentially, if you know someone who's interested in this, you know, basically someone might be a future geospatial analyst, this might be something that they might want to take a look at. Other than that, I think I have one more here. That's our site, and actually there's cards and things over there in case you ever want to visit the site. But here's where I'm going to end up. Finally, the infallibility of geospatial data. This was in the paper on Sunday. I had to throw this in. You have a Dilbert cartoon that says, okay, the pointy head boss says, take a company car and meet a customer in our data center on Montgomery and Pike.